The champagne tower glittered under crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's homes. Designer gowns swept marble floors. Diamond necklaces caught the light like tiny captured stars. But Cassandra Wright, soon-to-be ex-billionaire wife, stood in the center of the ballroom, holding something far more valuable than any jewel in that room: 300 printed photographs of her husband's betrayal, and a smile that promised the kind of revenge that would be whispered about in boardrooms for decades. Tonight, at the most exclusive charity gala in San Francisco, where tech moguls and oil tycoons mingled with Hollywood royalty and political dynasties, she would burn down the perfect life everyone envied, one photograph at a time. Before we begin this journey of betrayal, love, and redemption, let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us here on Mr. Douglas Stories. Bless every viewer watching this tale. Guide their hearts toward wisdom, protect them from deceit, and fill their lives with authentic love and divine justice. May this story remind them that no darkness can stand against the light of truth. Amen. If you're standing with us on this journey, type in the comments, "I am with Mr. Douglas Stories." Now let me take you back to where it all began. Cassandra Wright had everything a woman could want. At least, that's what the magazine said. At 32, she lived in a penthouse overlooking the San Francisco Bay that cost more than a small country's GDP. Her walk-in closet resembled a Parisian boutique. Her husband, Julian Wright, was the golden boy of Silicon Valley, a self-made billionaire who'd revolutionized cloud computing before turning 35. His face graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Wired. His company, NeuralSync Technologies, had a market cap that made even Jeff Bezos raise an eyebrow. Their wedding 4 years ago had been called the merger of the decade. Cassandra, daughter of Senator Patricia Holloway and renowned surgeon Dr. Michael Holloway, brought political connections and old money prestige. Julian brought new money power and technological genius. Together, they were supposed to be unstoppable. But as Cassandra stood in their bedroom, all white silk curtains and imported Italian furniture, staring at her husband's laptop screen, she realized that perfection was just another word for prison. The email was open. She hadn't meant to see it. Julian had rushed out that morning for an emergency board meeting, leaving his computer unlocked. Cassandra had simply walked past to close it when 3 words caught her eye. "Can't wait for Prague." The sender, Natasha Volkov, Julian's executive assistant, who looked like she'd stepped off a Moscow runway and into a corporate espionage thriller. Cassandra's hand trembled as she scrolled up. The email chain went back months: hotel confirmations, flight itineraries, and photos. God, the photos. Julian's hand on Natasha's lower back at a conference in Dubai. The two of them sharing champagne on what looked like a private yacht. A selfie taken from inside a hotel room. Natasha's head on Julian's bare shoulder, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. The timestamp on that last photo, 3 weeks ago, when Julian had told Cassandra he was in Seattle for investor meetings. She sat down slowly on their California king bed, the one they'd picked out together in Milan, laughing about thread counts like normal couples. Her vision blurred. Her chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed her heart with an iron fist. How long had this been happening? How many business trips were lies? How many times had he kissed her goodbye and flown straight into another woman's arms. Cassandra's phone buzzed. A text from her mother. "Darling, don't forget, the charity gala is in 6 months. They want you and Julian as keynote speakers. The theme is truth and transparency in leadership." Rather perfect, isn't it? Truth and transparency. A laugh bubbled up from Cassandra's throat, bitter and sharp. It echoed in the empty penthouse. Then something shifted inside her. The tears dried. Her spine straightened. She looked at that laptop screen with new eyes. If Julian wanted to play games, fine, but he'd chosen the wrong woman to deceive. Cassandra Wright wasn't just a senator's daughter or a billionaire's wife. Before her marriage, she'd been a rising star at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's white-collar crime division. She'd taken down corporate fraudsters, traced money through labyrinthine offshore accounts, and sat across from the smartest criminals in America without flinching. She'd given up that career when Julian proposed, convinced that love and partnership mattered more than professional glory. Now she saw it clearly. She'd traded her power for a pretty cage. Well, it was time to pick the lock. The next 3 weeks transformed Cassandra into someone she barely recognized. By day, she remained the perfect wife, attending Julian's corporate dinners, smiling for society photographers, discussing philanthropic ventures with other trophy spouses who'd traded ambition for security. By night, she became a shadow in her own home. She installed monitoring software on Julian's devices using techniques she'd learned at Quantico. She hired a private investigator named Rex Donovan, a former Navy SEAL turned security consultant with a reputation for being both ruthless and discreet. She opened a private bank account at a different institution, quietly moving assets where Julian couldn't touch them. Most importantly, she said nothing. Julian noticed no difference. Why would he? In his mind, Cassandra was decorative, beautiful, well-connected, useful for appearances. He probably assumed she spent her days shopping and lunching with equally vapid women. He had no idea his wife was building a case against him with the precision of a federal prosecutor. The evidence mounted quickly. Document number 1. Hotel receipts showing Julian had booked suites in Prague, Paris, Tokyo, and Barcelona, all under his personal name, none attached to neural sync expense reports. Document number 2. Text messages between Julian and Natasha that were explicit enough to make Cassandra's stomach turn. Apparently, her husband had quite the imagination when it came to someone who wasn't his wife. Document number 3. Photos retrieved from Julian's cloud storage. Dozens of them, documenting an affair that had been going on for nearly 2 years. 2 years of lies, carefully constructed alibis, and betrayal. But the smoking gun came 3 months before the gala. Rex called Cassandra at 2 a.m. She answered on the first ring. She'd stopped sleeping through the night weeks ago. "I've got something," Rex's gravelly voice said, without preamble. "You're going to want to sit down." "I'm already sitting." "It's not just an affair, Mrs. Wright. Your husband and his girlfriend have been embezzling from Neural Sync. They've got a shell company in the Cayman Islands, Volkov Holdings LLC. They've been siphoning research and development funds for the past 18 months. We're talking about $30 million. Cassandra's blood went cold. $30 million. Minimum. I'm still tracing the money, but it gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. They're planning something bigger. I intercepted emails discussing a final transfer right before some big announcement. I think they're going to clean out a major account and disappear. When? Best guess? Within the next few months. Right around the time, Rex paused. Right around the time of that charity gala you're planning. Cassandra's mind raced. Julian wasn't just cheating on her. He was robbing his own company, deceiving his board of directors, and planning to vanish with his mistress and enough money to live like royalty for several lifetimes. And he thought she was too stupid, too pampered, too irrelevant to notice. Rex, Cassandra said softly, I need you to keep digging. I want to know every account, every transfer, every single detail. And I need something else. Name it. I want photographs. Not just the affair, though God knows I have enough of those. I want photos of the financial documents, the shell company paperwork, the email chains, everything. Make them look professional, the kind of thing you could present in court. You planning to press charges? Cassandra smiled in the darkness of her bedroom, listening to Julian's steady breathing from across the California King. I'm planning something better than charges, Rex. I'm planning humiliation. Before we continue with Cassandra's master plan, if you're as invested in this journey as I am, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button below. Click the notification bell so you don't miss what happens when she finally reveals those photographs. This story gets darker, more twisted, and absolutely explosive. Trust me, you'll want to be here for every second. Cassandra became an actress worthy of an Academy Award. She planned a romantic dinner for Julian's birthday, cooked his favorite meal, braised short ribs with truffle mashed potatoes, wore the red dress he loved, gave him a Patek Philippe watch worth $80,000. You're incredible, Julian said, kissing her forehead like she was a child. I don't deserve you. Finally, something true, Cassandra thought, but she just smiled. Happy birthday, darling. That night, as Julian slept beside her, Cassandra lay awake, planning every detail of his destruction. The charity gala would be perfect. Her mother had secured attendance from governors, senators, tech CEOs, Hollywood A-listers, and international dignitaries. The guest list read like a who's who of global power. Media would be everywhere, not just society reporters, but legitimate journalists covering the political and business elite. The theme: truth and transparency in leadership. Cassandra almost laughed at the cosmic irony. Julian would be giving the keynote speech about ethical leadership in technology, about building trust, about integrity. And that's when Cassandra would hand out 300 photographs documenting every lie he'd ever told her. But as the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. Julian became attentive. I've been thinking, he said one morning over coffee, we should take a vacation. Just us. No phones, no business, no obligations. What do you think? Cassandra looked up from her tablet, where she'd been reviewing bank statements Rex had uncovered. A vacation? Bali, maybe. Or that place in New Zealand you always talked about visiting. We could go for 2 weeks. Really reconnect. He reached across the table and took her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I feel like I've been neglecting you. Work has consumed me, and that's not fair to you. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Cassandra wondered if she'd imagined everything. If somehow the emails and photos and financial records were elaborate fabrications her paranoid mind had constructed. Then she remembered the photo of Natasha's head on Julian's shoulder. The text message that read, "Can't wait to wake up next to you every morning. Soon." Cassandra squeezed Julian's hand and manufactured her most loving smile. "That sounds wonderful. After the gala?" "Perfect." Julian kissed her knuckles. "I love you, Cass." "I love you too," she lied. That afternoon, Rex sent her the final piece of evidence: flight confirmations for Julian and Natasha, scheduled for 3 days after the gala. Destination, Buenos Aires. One-way tickets. They were really going to do it. Steal the money, give a pretty speech about integrity, and disappear. Cassandra sat in her walk-in closet, surrounded by Chanel and Hermes and Valentino, and made a decision. She wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to give Julian the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Instead, she was going to show him exactly who Cassandra Wright really was. 2 months before the gala, Cassandra received an unexpected visitor. Grace Thornton appeared at Cassandra's favorite cafe, a quiet spot in Pacific Heights, where she often went to think. Grace was Julian's older sister, a venture capitalist with a reputation for being ruthlessly smart and completely uninterested in social niceties. "Mind if I sit?" Grace asked, not waiting for an answer before sliding into the chair across from Cassandra. They'd never been close. Grace had made it clear at the wedding that she thought Cassandra was a gold digger, using Julian for his money and connections. Cassandra had made it equally clear that Grace's opinion meant less than nothing to her. "What do you want, Grace?" "To talk about my idiot brother." Grace ordered an espresso from a passing waiter, then fixed Cassandra with sharp grey eyes, Julian's eyes. "You know about the affair?" It wasn't a question. Cassandra's face remained perfectly neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please. I've been watching you for weeks. You're too smart to be oblivious. And you've been moving money out of joint accounts into private holdings. Don't worry. I only noticed because I know what to look for. Julian's too arrogant to pay attention to his own wife's financial activities." Cassandra said nothing, but her mind raced. Was Grace here to protect Julian, to warn her to stay quiet, to buy her off? Grace continued, "I also know about the embezzlement. 30 million so far, probably more by the time he's done. He and that Russian parasect he calls an assistant have been stealing from his own company. If you know all this, why are you telling me instead of your brother?" Grace's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Because Julian is a brilliant technologist and a complete moron about everything else. He's going to destroy the company my family built. NeuralSync isn't just his. Our father started that business before Julian was born. I've got a 20% stake, and I'll be damned if I let his midlife crisis tank my investment." "So this is about money?" "No." Grace leaned forward. "This is about justice. Julian has always thought he was invincible, smarter than everyone, above consequences. Someone needs to teach him he's not. And based on what I've seen, you're planning something spectacular." Cassandra studied Grace carefully. "Why would I plan anything?" "Because you're not just some senator's daughter playing dress-up. I looked into your background after Julian proposed. FBI, white-collar crime, closed an 82% conviction rate. You gave up a career taking down financial criminals to marry my brother. And now you've discovered He is a financial criminal. Grace's smile was predatory. What are you planning? Divorce? Criminal charges? Cassandra made a decision. She needed an ally, someone who understood both Julian's business and his psychology, someone with her own reasons to want him exposed. The charity gala, Cassandra said quietly. I'm going to expose everything in front of everyone who matters. Grace's eyes lit up. Publicly? Not through lawyers or courts? He deserves public humiliation. He deserves to watch his reputation, the thing he values more than his marriage, more than his integrity, burn to ash in real time. What do you need? Financial documents. I have copies, but if you can provide board-level documentation proving the embezzlement came from company funds, it'll be ironclad, and I need you there, at the gala, ready to confirm everything I say. Grace extended her hand across the table. You've got a deal, on one condition. What? When this is over, you take him for everything he's worth. Not just the assets, I mean everything. His reputation, his company, his freedom if possible. Julian has spent his entire life thinking he's better than everyone else. I want him to know what it feels like to lose. They shook hands. Two women united by betrayal, ready to bring down the man who thought he was untouchable. 6 weeks before the gala, Natasha made a critical mistake. She called the penthouse. Cassandra answered. Julian was in the shower. The line crackled with silence for 3 seconds before Natasha's Russian-accented voice came through, smooth as silk and sharp as a blade. Is Julian available? He's indisposed. Can I take a message? Cassandra kept her voice professionally pleasant, giving nothing away. Tell him Prague is confirmed. He'll know what it means. Of course. And who should I say called? Another pause. Natasha, his assistant. Ah, yes, Natasha. We've never met properly, have we? Julian speaks so highly of you. That's kind. Natasha's voice had an edge now, uncertainty masked by bravado. I should go. Just one moment. Cassandra's voice dropped, losing all pretense of politeness. I want you to know something, Natasha. You're not as clever as you think you are. Neither is Julian. And very soon, everyone is going to know exactly what kind of people you both are. Silence. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. See you at the gala. Cassandra hung up. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from pure adrenaline. She'd just shown her cards. Natasha would tell Julian, and Julian would… What? Confront her? Deny everything? Try to gaslight her into thinking she was crazy? But when Julian emerged from the shower, Natasha hadn't called him. The rest of the day passed normally, then the next day, and the next. Rex called with an explanation. They're panicking. I've got surveillance on both of them. Natasha went straight to Julian's office after you hung up. They had a 40-minute meeting behind closed doors. Since then, they've barely communicated. My guess? They're deciding whether to accelerate their timeline or abandon the plan entirely. Which will they choose? Honestly, they're too far in to back out. They'll probably decide you're bluffing, that you couldn't possibly know the details. Arrogance makes people stupid. Rex was right. 2 days later, Julian came home with flowers, expensive orchids, from Cassandra's favorite florist. I heard you had a strange phone call, he said casually, arranging the orchids in a crystal vase. Natasha mentioned she rang the house by mistake, meant to call my mobile, said you were cryptic with her. Cassandra looked up from her book. Was I? I don't recall. She said you mentioned the gala. Something about seeing her there? Well, she is your assistant. I assumed she'd be attending. Julian studied her face, searching for cracks in her composure. Cassandra had spent months perfecting this mask. He'd find nothing. Cassandra, he said slowly, sitting beside her on the sofa, is everything okay between us? You've seemed distant lately. Distant? You've been sleeping with your assistant for 2 years and stealing millions from your company, but I'm the one who's distant. Out loud, Cassandra said, I'm fine, darling. Just stressed about the gala. Mother has been unbearable about the seating arrangements. Relief flooded Julian's features. He kissed her forehead, that patronizing gesture he'd perfected. You're incredible, you know that. Managing all this social circus while I focus on work. I really don't deserve you. No, Cassandra agreed quietly. You really don't. 3 weeks before the gala, Cassandra made the most important decision of her plan: how to distribute 300 photographs in a way that would maximize impact without getting her arrested for assault with paper products. She hired Lydia Park, an award-winning photographer who documented everything from war zones to fashion weeks. Lydia was expensive, meticulous, and most importantly, discreet. I need 300 identical photographs printed on the highest quality paper, Cassandra explained in Lydia's studio, a converted warehouse in the Mission District. Large enough to see details clearly, durable enough to survive being passed around a crowded ballroom. What's the photograph of? Cassandra handed her a USB drive. Multiple images, actually. I need you to create a composite, something that tells a complete story at a glance. Lydia loaded the drive onto her computer. Her eyes widened as image after image appeared on screen. Julian and Natasha, in various stages of intimacy across multiple countries and hotels. Financial documents showing wire transfers to Cayman Island accounts. Email printouts with timestamps and dates. Holy shit, Lydia breathed. This is evidence of infidelity and corporate embezzlement, Cassandra finished calmly. I'm presenting it at a charity gala in front of approximately 300 guests, including my husband and his mistress. Can you make it beautiful, in a devastating sort of way? Lydia looked at Cassandra with new respect. Can I make a suggestion? Please. Instead of one composite, what if we create a series, like a photo essay? That way, each image tells part of the story. Guest 1 gets the affair photos. Guest 2 gets the financial documents. Guest 3 gets the emails. Individually, they're damning. Together, they're a complete case file. Cassandra smiled, her first genuine smile in months. That's brilliant. One question, though. Lydia's expression turned serious. After you hand these out, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Your husband will be ruined. Are you absolutely sure? My marriage ended 2 years ago, Cassandra said quietly. I was just the last person to know. Now, everyone else gets to know too. We're approaching the moment you've all been waiting for, the gala itself. But before we get there, if you haven't already, smash that like button. This story took hours to research and craft, and your support means everything. Also, turn on those notifications because the next few chapters, they're going to blow your mind. Gala day arrived with San Francisco fog so thick, it looked like the city had been wrapped in cotton. Cassandra woke at 5 a.m., her heart surprisingly calm. Today was the day, the end of one life, the beginning of another. Julian was already awake, pacing in his dressing room, while shouting into his phone. I don't care if the Japanese investors are concerned about the quarterly reports. Make them understand this is a temporary dip. No, don't you dare suggest we delay the announcement. Cassandra tuned him out. She'd heard variations of this conversation 100 times. Julian always sounded like the world was ending until the moment he stepped in front of cameras. Then he transformed into the confident genius everyone expected. She went through her morning routine with ritual precision. Yoga, shower, light breakfast of yogurt and berries. Her dress hung in the closet, a custom Givenchy gown in midnight blue, elegant and understated. She'd chosen it specifically to avoid looking like she was trying too hard. Tonight wasn't about competing with anyone. It was about unveiling truth. At noon, her phone buzzed. Rex. Packages delivered. 300 photographs distributed to coat check. They'll hand them out after the keynote speech, exactly as you instructed. Everything's in place. Grace called 10 minutes later. Board documents are ready. I'll be sitting in the third row, stage left. When you give the signal, I'll stand and confirm everything. Are you nervous? No, Cassandra answered honestly. I'm ready. Her mother called at 2 p.m. Darling, I've just heard the most ridiculous rumor. Someone said you and Julian are having problems. I told them that was absurd. You two are the perfect couple, aren't you? Cassandra looked at herself in the mirror. She'd applied her makeup carefully, sophisticated, but not overdone. Her hair was swept into an elegant updo. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman in complete control. Mother, Cassandra said slowly, do you remember when I graduated from Quantico? You told me I was throwing away my potential by joining the FBI instead of marrying well. I never said that. Yes, you did. You said, Cassandra, intelligence is admirable, but influence comes from who you marry, not what you do. Do you remember my response? Silence. I told you that I'd rather have power than influence, that I'd rather build something than borrow it from a husband. Do you remember what you said? Cassandra, this is hardly the time. You said, you'll understand when you're older. Well, I'm older now, Mother, and tonight I'm going to show you exactly what I understand. See you at the gala. She hung up. At 5 p.m., Julian emerged from his study wearing a Tom Ford tuxedo that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Perfectly styled dark hair with distinguished gray at the temples, chiseled jaw, eyes that could charm investors or intimidate competitors, depending on his mood. You look beautiful, he said. And for a moment, Cassandra saw the man she'd married. Before the lies, before Natasha, before she'd learned that love without trust was just another prison. Thank you, she replied, ready to talk about integrity and ethical leadership. If Julian caught the edge in her voice, he didn't show it. Born ready. This speech is going to be legendary. I've been working on it for weeks. Oh, darling, Cassandra thought, you have no idea just how legendary tonight is going to be. The Presidio Event Center had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Golden Gate Bridge, now emerging from fog like a rust-colored phoenix. Crystal chandeliers cast geometric shadows across marble floors. Each table held centerpieces of white roses and gold accents, surrounded by place settings worth more than a car payment. Cassandra and Julian arrived in their private car, a vintage Bentley Julian kept for special occasions. Photographers swarmed immediately, flashbulbs creating a strobe light effect against the evening sky. "Julian, over here." "Cassandra, who are you wearing?" "Mr. Wright, any comment on the rumors about a major neural sync announcement?" Julian did what he did best. He performed, smiled for cameras, gave charming sound bites, played the role of brilliant billionaire with perfect wife. Cassandra stood beside him, her hand tucked into his elbow, her smile practiced and empty. Inside, the ballroom was already filling with the kind of people who appeared in history books and newspaper scandals. Governor Raymond Torres held court near the bar, surrounded by donors and sycophants. Hollywood actress Priya Mehta, fresh off an Oscar win, laughed with tech CEO David Kwon from ByteForge Industries. Cassandra's mother worked the room like a general surveying troops, her political instincts honed over 3 decades in the Senate. And there, near the stage entrance, stood Natasha Volkov. She wore scarlet, a power color, a challenge. Her blonde hair cascaded over bare shoulders. Her dress was expensive, but just slightly too tight, too low cut. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman trying too hard to compete in a room full of people who'd been born into this world. Natasha's eyes met Cassandra's across the ballroom. The mistress's expression flickered. Uncertainty, defiance, something almost like fear. Cassandra smiled and raised her champagne glass in a silent toast. Natasha paled and looked away. "Everything all right?" Julian murmured, following Cassandra's gaze. "Perfect," Cassandra replied, just admiring the decorations. The evening progressed with painful normalcy. Speeches about charitable causes, auction items including African safaris and private island vacations, a string quartet playing Mozart. Wealthy people pretending to care about poverty while wearing jewelry worth more than the annual budgets they were supposedly supporting. Cassandra made small talk, laughed at appropriate moments, and counted down the minutes until Julian's keynote speech. Grace caught her eye from across the room and nodded once. Everything was ready. At 8 p.m., the lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the stage. The master of ceremonies, some tech podcast host Cassandra didn't recognize, took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor to introduce tonight's keynote speaker. He revolutionized cloud computing before turning 30. His company, Neural Sync Technologies, is valued at over $20 billion. He's been called the next Steve Jobs, the new Elon Musk, and Silicon Valley's most eligible bachelor. Well, married bachelor." Polite laughter rippled through the audience. "Please welcome the embodiment of tonight's theme, truth and transparency in leadership, Julian Wright." Applause thundered through the ballroom. Julian strode onto the stage, confidence radiating from every step. He looked like a man who'd conquered the world and found it easy. He had no idea he was about to lose everything. Julian's voice carried perfectly through the ballroom's sound system, rich and confident. "Good evening. I want to start by saying thank you, not just for being here tonight, but for believing in the power of ethical leadership. Because that's what we're really talking about when we discuss truth and transparency. We're talking about trust. And trust, ladies and gentlemen, is the currency of the future. Cassandra stood at the back of the ballroom, her heart steady. In her hands, she held a remote control, one button that would signal the coat check staff to begin distributing photographs. Julian continued, "In my career, I've learned something crucial. Technology without ethics is just power without purpose. Anyone can build a company. Anyone can make money. But building something that lasts, something that changes the world for the better, that requires integrity." The irony is almost beautiful, Cassandra thought. "I've made mistakes," Julian admitted, his voice taking on a humble tone that he'd probably practiced in the mirror. "I've been so focused on growth that I sometimes forgot about the people depending on me, my employees, my investors, my—" He paused, found Cassandra in the crowd, and smiled. "My incredible wife, who has supported me through everything." The audience made sympathetic sounds. Several people turned to look at Cassandra with admiration. She smiled back and pressed the button. At the coat check, staff members began pulling 300 large, professional-quality photographs from storage. Each one had been placed in an elegant envelope marked with gold script. "Truth and transparency, a case study." "But I'm here tonight to make a promise," Julian said, building to his conclusion. "I promise that Neural Sync will always operate with complete transparency, that we will never hide our mistakes or deceive our stakeholders. That integrity will be our guiding principle, no matter the cost to profits or convenience. Because at the end of the day, your reputation is all you really have. And mine is built on truth." The first envelopes were being distributed now. Cassandra watched as confused guests opened them, pulled out photographs, and the reactions started like dominoes falling. A gasp from table 7, whispered shock from table 12. Governor Torres's face going rigid as he studied the financial documents. Priya Mehta's hand flying to her mouth as she saw the affair photos. David Kwan standing up, photograph in hand, staring at the stage in disbelief. Julian was still talking, oblivious. "So I challenge everyone here tonight. In your business, in your life, in your relationships, choose truth over convenience. Choose transparency over deception. Choose—" Julian. Governor Torres's voice cut through the sound system as he stood, microphone in hand. "Perhaps you could explain these photographs that are being distributed, the ones showing you engaged in an extramarital affair and embezzling company funds." The ballroom exploded. Guests were pulling out photographs, comparing them, voices rising in shock and outrage. Photographers who'd been hired to document the gala turned their cameras from the stage to the audience, capturing the chaos. Julian stood frozen, his face cycling through confusion, denial, and finally, when he spotted Natasha across the room, holding one of the photographs with trembling hands, understanding. His eyes found Cassandra. She stood at the back of the ballroom, illuminated by spotlight spillover, and slowly raised her champagne glass in the same silent toast she'd given Natasha earlier. Then she smiled. "What?" Julian's voice came through the microphone, small and lost. "What is this?" Cassandra began walking toward the stage, her heels clicking against marble with methodical precision. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. Every eye in the ballroom was either on her or on the photographs documenting her husband's betrayal. She climbed the stairs to the stage with perfect poise. Julian backed away instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. Cassandra took the microphone from his nerveless fingers. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady and clear. "My name is Cassandra Wright, and I'd like to continue tonight's discussion about truth and transparency." The silence in the ballroom was absolute. 300 of the world's most powerful people held their collective breath. Cassandra continued, "My husband is correct about one thing. Integrity is everything. So let me demonstrate some. 6 months ago, I discovered that Julian has been having an affair with his executive assistant, Natasha Volkov, for approximately 2 years. The photographs you're now examining document their relationship across multiple countries and continents." She gestured to the screens behind her, where the AV team, following instructions she'd given them hours earlier, now displayed blown-up versions of the most damning photos. Julian and Natasha kissing in Prague, holding hands in Paris, in bed together in what was clearly a hotel room in Barcelona. Julian made a strangled sound. Natasha was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but security, also following Cassandra's prearranged instructions, had locked the doors. "But infidel is merely a symptom," Cassandra said. "The real disease is deeper. For the past 18 months, Julian and Natasha have been embezzling funds from Neural Sync Technologies through a shell company called Volkov Holdings LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. To date, they've stolen approximately $37 million. Gasps, shouts. Someone yelled, "Call the police." Grace stood up on cue. "I can confirm this is accurate. As a board member of Neural Sync with access to financial records, I authorized a private audit 3 weeks ago. The documentation is irrefutable." David Kwan was on his phone immediately, probably calling his lawyers, his PR team, or both. Other Neural Sync investors were doing the same. Cassandra could see the dominoes falling in real time. Stock values plummeting, board meetings being emergency scheduled, criminal investigations being initiated. The plan, Cassandra continued, was simple. Tonight, after giving this inspiring speech about integrity, Julian and Natasha were scheduled to fly to Buenos Aires in 3 days. They have one-way tickets, new identities, and 37 million reasons to never return. Julian finally found his voice. "Cassandra, this is insane. You're having some kind of breakdown." "Am I?" She pulled a USB drive from her clutch. "This contains every email you and Natasha exchanged, every financial document, every hotel receipt, every text message about how you couldn't wait to finally be free of that frigid bitch who thinks she's better than everyone." Cassandra's voice didn't waver. "That's what you called me, by the way, in a text sent 3 weeks ago." The crowd murmured. Senator Holloway, Cassandra's mother, looked like she might faint. "So, let's talk about truth and transparency," Cassandra said. "Let's talk about how my husband spent 2 years lying to me, to his board, to his employees, and to everyone in this room. Let's talk about how he stood here tonight, preaching about integrity, while planning to rob his own company and abandon his wife." She turned to face Julian directly, the man who'd promised to love her, honor her, cherish her, the man she'd rearranged her entire life for. "You asked me once if everything was okay between us," she said softly, just for him, though the microphone carried her words throughout the ballroom. You asked if I seemed distant. The truth is, I've been distant since the moment I discovered who you really are. Not a genius, not a visionary, just a mediocre man with good ideas and terrible character. Julian's face had gone purple with rage. You had no right. I had every right, Cassandra cut him off. You made vows to me. You broke them. And now everyone knows. She stepped down from the stage, handed the microphone to a stunned stagehand, and walked toward the exit. Grace fell into step beside her. That was magnificent. That was necessary, Cassandra corrected. Behind them, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Julian was shouting at Natasha. Investors were demanding explanations. Reporters were live-streaming the implosion of Julian Wright's carefully constructed empire. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had clearly already called them. As Cassandra pushed through the doors into the cool San Francisco night, she heard her mother's voice. Cassandra, Cassandra. Wait. Senator Holloway caught up to them, breathless and furious. What have you done? Do you have any idea the scandal this creates, the political ramifications? Cassandra looked at her mother. This woman who'd always valued appearance over authenticity, influence over integrity. Yes, Mother. I know exactly what I've done. I've chosen power over influence. I've chosen truth over convenience. Isn't that what you always wanted for me? To marry well and make a name for myself? This isn't what I meant. I know it isn't. You meant for me to smile and ignore his affairs, to protect his reputation at the cost of my dignity, to be decorative and quiet and grateful. Cassandra's voice was steel, wrapped in silk. But I was never that woman. You just didn't pay enough attention to notice. She walked away from her mother, from the Gala, from the life she'd built on foundations of sand. Grace called after her, "Where are you going?" Cassandra didn't turn around. "Home, to pack. I have a flight to New Zealand in the morning." "What about the legal proceedings, the divorce, the investigation?" "My lawyers will handle it. Rex has all the evidence the FBI needs, and I've already filed for divorce. Julian will be served tomorrow." "Cassandra," Grace said, catching up one more time, "thank you for having the courage to do what I should have done years ago." They looked at each other, two women who'd been underestimated their entire lives, finally refusing to play small. "He never saw us coming, did he?" Grace asked. Cassandra smiled, a real smile this time, full of freedom and vindication. "No, he really didn't." The next 72 hours moved with the speed of scandal and the precision of justice. Julian was arrested at the Gala itself. The FBI, alerted by the evidence Cassandra had provided weeks earlier, had been waiting for her signal. The photographs weren't just for humiliation. They were the opening act of a federal investigation. Natasha tried to flee, but was apprehended at SFO Airport with 3 passports and $2 million in cash. Apparently, she'd been skimming from the skimming, a fact that Julian discovered in his holding cell and reportedly did not take well. Neural Sync stock dropped 40% in 24 hours. Emergency board meetings were called. Grace was appointed interim CEO, tasked with salvaging what remained of the company's reputation. The media had a field day. "Billionaire's double life exposed at charity gala," screamed the headlines. Think pieces proliferated about corporate greed, infidelity in Silicon Valley, and the women who finally said enough. Cassandra's phone exploded with calls, texts, and interview requests. She ignored them all. She was on a plane to Auckland within 18 hours of the gala, first class, champagne in hand, watching San Francisco disappear beneath clouds. Rex had ensured her safety, hired security, swept her accounts for any revenge attempts, monitored Julian's communications from prison. "He's claiming you framed him," Rex reported over an encrypted call. "Says you fabricated the evidence, that you're a vindictive psychopath." "Let him claim whatever he wants," Cassandra replied. "The evidence speaks for itself." The FBI agrees. They're looking at 20 years minimum for Julian, maybe 15 for Natasha. The civil suits will take everything. His company stake, personal assets, all of it. You'll get a substantial settlement in the divorce. "I don't want his money." "Take it anyway," Rex advised. "Donate it, burn it, turn it into a scholarship fund for women leaving abusive marriages. But take it. Make him know he lost everything." Cassandra considered this. "How much are we talking?" "Conservatively, after legal fees and asset division, you're looking at somewhere between $400 and $600 million. She laughed, a sound of disbelief and dark humor. "I exposed him to humiliate him, and I'm walking away wealthier than I ever imagined." "Sometimes," Rex said, "the universe has a sense of irony." Cassandra stood on the deck of her cottage, nothing like the penthouse, but infinitely more peaceful, watching the sun rise over Lake Wakatipu. Mountains reflected in still water. Birds sang. The air smelled clean, unmarred by scandal or betrayal. Her phone buzzed. "Grace, thought you'd want to know. Julian was sentenced today. 22 years federal prison, no parole for at least 15. Natasha got 18. Cassandra felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness, just a kind of quiet closure. She replied, "Thank you for telling me." "Grace, also, the SEC investigation cleared the rest of the board. Neural Sync is recovering. Stocks back up to 70% of pre-scandal value. We're going to survive." "I'm glad. Are you coming back to the States anytime soon?" Cassandra looked out at the mountains, the lake, the vast, empty sky. She'd spent the past 6 months hiking, reading, rediscovering who she was when she wasn't performing for cameras or managing a billionaire's image. "Maybe eventually, but not yet." "What are you doing with all that settlement money?" Cassandra smiled. "Starting a foundation. For women who need resources to leave abusive or deceptive relationships. Legal fees, private investigators, housing, career training, everything I had access to that most women don't." "That's perfect. What are you calling it?" "The Holloway Foundation. My maiden name. I'm taking it back." "Good for you, Cassandra Holloway. You earned it." After they disconnected, Cassandra poured herself coffee and opened her laptop. She had emails to answer, from women who'd seen her story in the news, who'd reached out asking for help, for advice, for hope that they could escape their own versions of Julian Wright. She wrote to each one personally, shared her story, offered resources, made it clear, you are not alone, you are not powerless, and you deserve better than lies. Around noon, there was a knock at her door. Cassandra opened it to find a delivery person holding a massive bouquet of native New Zealand flowers. Exotic, colorful, nothing like the expensive but soulless arrangements Julian used to buy. The card read, "From your mother. I'm sorry I didn't see. I'm sorry I didn't believe you could handle this. You handled it better than anyone. Love always." Cassandra set the flowers on her table and allowed herself a small smile. Maybe some relationships could be repaired, after all. That evening, she walked down to the village pub. It was casual, unpretentious, the kind of place where billionaire scandals seemed impossibly far away. She ordered a local beer and sat at the bar. A man a few stools down looked over. "American? Is it that obvious?" "Accent gives it away. I'm Oliver Chen." He extended his hand. "Marine biologist. Just finished a research stint in Fiji, heading back to Auckland tomorrow." "Cassandra," she replied, shaking his hand. She didn't give her last name, didn't mention her past. For the first time in years, she was just herself. They talked for hours about ocean conservation, New Zealand's environmental policies, the best hiking trails around Queenstown. He was funny, intelligent, passionate about his work. He asked about her life with genuine interest, and she found herself sharing carefully edited versions of her story. "So you just walked away from everything?" Oliver asked. "Started over?" "Something like that." "That's brave." "Or stupid," Cassandra countered. "Depends on your perspective." "I think it's brave." Oliver's smile was warm, uncomplicated. "Most people stay in situations that make them miserable because leaving is hard. You chose hard over miserable. That's impressive." When they parted ways that night, Oliver asked if he could call her sometime. Cassandra surprised herself by saying yes. Cassandra returned to the city for the opening of the Holloway Foundation's first resource center. It was located in the Mission District, accessible and welcoming. Nothing like the gilded ballrooms of her old life. The media was there, of course, but this time she controlled the narrative. "Ms. Holloway," a reporter called out, "you disappeared for a year after the scandal. Why come back now?" "Because this isn't about me," Cassandra replied. "It's about the thousands of women who need support to leave deceptive or dangerous relationships. I had resources, money, connections, skills. Most women don't. This foundation is designed to level that playing field." "Have you spoken to Julian Wright since his sentencing?" "No, and I don't intend to." "Do you regret exposing him so publicly?" Cassandra paused, considering the question honestly. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that he made choices that forced me to make that choice. But do I regret standing up for myself? Refusing to be silent? Absolutely not." After the press conference, Grace pulled her aside. "You look different, lighter." "I feel different. Turns out, living honestly is less exhausting than maintaining a perfect facade." "Speaking of living honestly," Grace said with a knowing smile, "I heard rumors about a certain marine biologist." Cassandra laughed. "His name is Oliver. We've been together for 8 months. It's real, simple, good." "Are you going to marry him?" "God, no. Not anytime soon anyway. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being someone's wife. But he's patient. He understands." She looked at Grace. "What about you? How's neural sync?" "Recovering. We've implemented new ethics oversight, transparent accounting, and a whistleblower protection program. Everything Julian should have done from the beginning." Grace's expression turned serious. "I got a letter from him, you know. From prison." "What did it say?" "He wanted me to tell you he's sorry, that he understands now what he destroyed." Cassandra considered this. "Do you believe him? Does it matter? He lost everything that mattered, his company, his reputation, his freedom. Whether he's genuinely sorry or just sorry he got caught, the result is the same. I hope he's genuinely sorry, Cassandra said quietly. Not for my sake, for his. Because spending 20 years in prison, bitter and unrepentant, is a special kind of hell. That night, Cassandra stood in the same spot where she'd stood a year earlier at the Gala, the ballroom of the Presidio Event Center. They'd rented it for the foundation launch party, a deliberate choice. She wanted to reclaim this space, transform it from the site of her greatest pain into something meaningful. Senator Holloway approached, looking older but somehow more genuine than Cassandra remembered. "I'm proud of you," her mother said simply. "I should have said that a year ago. I should have believed you when you first told me about Julian. I'm sorry I didn't." "You believe appearances over authenticity," Cassandra replied. "It's who you are, Mother. I don't expect you to change." "Maybe I should." Senator Holloway looked around the ballroom, at the women sharing their stories, at the lawyers offering free consultations, at the safety resources being distributed. "Maybe you've shown me that authenticity is its own kind of power." They embraced, tentative at first, then genuine. As midnight approached, Cassandra stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. The fog had rolled in, wrapping the city in mystery and possibility. Her phone buzzed. "Oliver. How's the party?" "Overwhelming in the best way. How's the research?" "Discovered a new species of octopus. Named it after you. Brilliant, deceptively powerful, and more complex than anyone expects." She smiled. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "When do you fly back?" "Tomorrow. And Oliver? I'm ready to talk about that thing you asked me last month." "The moving in together thing?" "Yes." The answer is yes. There was a pause, then, "I love you, Cassandra Holloway." "I love you too." As she stood there, overlooking the city where she'd been both trapped and freed, Cassandra reflected on the journey. A year ago, she'd walked into this ballroom as a woman living a lie. Tonight, she was walking out as herself, scarred, stronger, and finally, genuinely free. The photographs had exposed Julian's betrayal, but they'd also exposed her own strength, her capacity for strategic thinking, her refusal to be a victim. 300 photographs, one marriage destroyed, one life reclaimed. She wouldn't trade it for anything. The Holloway Foundation had grown beyond Cassandra's wildest expectations. Resource centers in 12 cities, a legal team that had helped over 3,000 women leave abusive situations, partnerships with shelters, career training programs, and mental health organizations. Cassandra and Oliver had married 3 years ago in a small ceremony in New Zealand. Just family and close friends, no media circus. They split their time between Auckland and San Francisco, both pursuing work they loved while building a life based on honesty and mutual respect. Grace had transformed NeuralSync into an industry leader in ethical tech practices. The company's reputation had recovered, and its value had surpassed pre-scandal levels. She and Cassandra remained close, sisters in the truest sense, bonded by shared battle. Julian was released after 15 years for good behavior. Cassandra heard through Grace that he'd moved to Oregon, was working at a community college teaching computer science, and had written a book about corporate ethics and personal redemption that no publisher would touch. She felt nothing about it. That chapter of her life was closed. One evening, Cassandra received an unexpected email. The sender, Natasha Volkov. Ms. Holloway, I don't expect you to read this, but I needed to write it anyway. I'm being released next month after serving 13 years. I've spent every day of my incarceration thinking about what I did, not just the embezzlement, but my role in destroying your marriage, your trust, your life. You had every right to expose us the way you did. I was arrogant enough to think I could compete with you, steal what was yours, and face no consequences. I was wrong about all of it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that what you did, standing up for yourself, refusing to be silent, taught me something crucial about dignity and strength. I hope you've built a beautiful life. You earned it. Natasha Volkov. Cassandra stared at the email for a long time. Then she typed a reply. Natasha, I don't forgive you. But I don't hate you either. You made terrible choices, and you paid for them. What you do now, how you rebuild your life, whether you learn from your mistakes, that's up to you. I hope you find a way to live with integrity. It's harder than lying, but infinitely more rewarding. Good luck, Cassandra. She hit send and closed her laptop. Oliver walked in, carrying their 18-month-old daughter Lily, who had his eyes and Cassandra's determination. What are you thinking about? He asked, settling beside her on the couch. About how far I've come. About the woman I used to be. The one who thought her value came from who she married. And now? Now I know my value comes from who I am, what I build, the people I help, the love I choose. She looked at her daughter, then at her husband. The life I create on my own terms. Oliver kissed her forehead. The billionaire's ex-wife, who became more powerful than the billionaire ever was. It's a hell of a story. It's my story, Cassandra corrected with a smile, and I'm still writing it. And there you have it, the complete, unfiltered story of how one woman refused to be a victim, armed herself with truth, and brought down an empire built on lies. Cassandra Holloway didn't just expose her husband's affair with 300 photographs. She reclaimed her identity, rebuilt her life, and created something that would help thousands of other women do the same. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about power, truth, and revenge, please hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is dedicated to stories that explore the complexity of human nature, the price of deception, and the strength it takes to choose authenticity over appearances. Like this video if you believe that truth should always triumph over lies, no matter how uncomfortable or explosive the revelation. And turn on those notifications, because the next story I have lined up is even more twisted, more dramatic, and more satisfying than this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Remember, in a world full of Julian Wrights, people who think they're too smart, too powerful, too protected to face consequences, be a Cassandra Holloway. Be the person who says enough. Be the one who prints the photographs and hands them out at the gala. Because the truth, it always has the last word. Until next time, this is Mr. Douglas Stories, reminding you that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming someone so authentic, so powerful, so completely yourself that the person who betrayed you becomes irrelevant. Now go comment, I am with Mr. Douglas Stories, and let's build a community of people who believe in truth, justice, and spectacular comebacks. See you in the next one.